I saw my daughter-in-law hurl a leather suitcase into the lake and drive away without a second glance. I ran to the shore and, with effort, dragged the soaked luggage out of the water. My hands were trembling so badly I nearly dropped it. That's when I heard a muffled sound coming from inside. "Please, don't let it be what I think it is," I whispered, my shaky fingers struggling to open the damp zipper. It was stuck, but it finally gave way, and in that instant, my heart simply stopped. What I saw inside made me shudder in a way I'd never felt in my 62 years of life. But before I continue, check if you've subscribed to the channel and write in the comments. Where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories travel. My name is Eleanor. I am 63 years old, and I've been living alone ever since I buried my only son, Daniel, 8 months ago. The house on the shore of Lake Michigan, which used to be full of laughter and memories, now felt too big, too quiet. That September afternoon, as I was sipping my iced tea on the porch, something caught my attention. The silver sedan belonging to Savannah, my daughter-in-law, appeared on the dirt road, kicking up dust. She was driving like a maniac, at a speed that was insane for that winding road. Something was very wrong. I placed my mug on the porch railing and squinted to get a better look. Savannah slammed on the brakes at the lake's edge, the engine still running. She jumped out of the car as if she were being chased. Her face was red, her hair a mess. She yanked open the trunk so hard I thought she'd rip the door off. That's when I saw the suitcase, that brown leather suitcase I had given her myself when she married Daniel. "So you can carry your dreams everywhere," I'd told her then. How naive I was. Savannah dragged the suitcase out of the car. It was heavy. You could tell by the way her body strained and her arms shook. She looked around, nervous, guilty. I'll never forget that look. "Savannah!" I shouted from the porch, but she didn't hear me, or she pretended not to. She walked to the water's edge. Every step seemed like a struggle, as if she were carrying not just a weight, but a terrible burden. She swung the suitcase once, twice, and on the third swing, she threw it into the water. The sound of the impact shattered the afternoon silence. The suitcase floated for a moment before slowly beginning to sink. Savannah scrambled back into the car. She started the engine, the tires squealed on the gravel, and she disappeared down the same dirt road, leaving behind nothing but dust and a heavy silence. I was paralyzed for a few seconds. What had I just witnessed? Savannah, the suitcase, the lake, the desperation in her movements. A shiver ran down my spine despite the afternoon heat. My legs started moving before my mind could process what was happening. I ran down the porch steps, crossed the yard, and headed for the dirt road. The lake was about 100 yards away. I ran as I hadn't in years. My knees protested, my chest burned, but I didn't stop. When I reached the shore, I was breathless. My heart hammered wildly against my ribs. The suitcase was still there, floating, sinking little by little. The leather was soaked, dark and heavy. I entered the water without hesitation. The lake was cold, much colder than I expected. It reached my knees, then my waist. The mud at the bottom sucked at my feet. I reached out my arms, grabbed one of the suitcase handles, and pulled. It was unbelievably heavy. I pulled harder, my arms trembling with the effort. The water splashed my face. My clothes were completely drenched. Finally, I managed to drag the suitcase onto the shore. That's when I heard it. A sound. Faint, muffled, coming from inside the suitcase. My blood froze. No, it couldn't be. Please, God, don't let it be what I'm thinking. I pulled faster, more desperately. I dragged the suitcase onto the wet sand of the bank and fell to my knees beside it. My hands searched for the zipper. It was stuck, wet, rusty. My fingers kept slipping. "Come on! Come on!" I repeated through clenched teeth. Tears began to blur my vision. I forced the zipper once, twice. Finally, it gave way. I lifted the lid, and what I saw inside made the whole world stop. My heart stopped beating. The air caught in my throat. My hands flew to my mouth to stifle a scream. There, wrapped in a soaked light blue blanket, was a baby. A newborn, so small, so fragile, so still. His lips were purple, his skin pale as wax, his eyes closed. He wasn't moving. Oh my God! Oh my God! No! My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold him. I pulled him out of the suitcase with a tenderness I didn't know I still possessed. He was cold. So cold. He weighed less than a bag of sand. His tiny head fit in the palm of my hand. His umbilical cord was still tied off with a piece of twine. Twine. Not a medical clamp. Common twine. As if someone had done this at home, in secret, with no help at all. "No, no, no," I whispered repeatedly. I pressed my ear against his chest. Silence. Nothing. I pressed my cheek against his nose, and then I felt it. A gasp of air so faint I thought I'd imagined it. But it was there. He was breathing. Barely, but breathing. I stood up, clutching the baby to my chest. My legs nearly gave out. I ran toward the house faster than I'd ever run in my life. Water streamed from my clothes. My bare feet bled on the stones of the path. But I felt no pain. Only terror. Only urgency. Only the desperate need to save that tiny life trembling against me. I burst into the house, screaming. I don't know what I was yelling. Maybe help, maybe God, maybe nothing coherent. I grabbed the kitchen phone with one hand while holding the baby with the other. I dialed 911. My fingers slipped on the keys. The phone almost fell twice. 911. What is your emergency? A female voice said. A baby. I found a baby in the lake. He's unresponsive. He's cold. He's purple. Please, please send help. Ma'am, I need you to calm down. Tell me your address. I gave my address in Chicago. The words came out in stutters. The operator told me to place the baby on a flat surface. I swept everything off the kitchen table with one arm. Everything crashed to the floor. Plates, papers, nothing mattered. I put the baby on the table. So small, so fragile, so still. Is he breathing? I asked the operator. My voice was a high-pitched shriek I didn't recognize. You tell me. Look at his chest. Is it moving? I looked, watching closely. An almost imperceptible movement, so subtle I had to lean in to see it. Yes, I think so. Very little. All right. Listen carefully. I'm going to guide you. I need you to get a clean towel and dry the baby very carefully. Then wrap him up to keep him warm. The ambulance is already on the way. I did as she told me. I grabbed towels from the bathroom. I dried his tiny body with clumsy, desperate movements. Every second felt like an eternity. I wrapped the baby in clean towels. I picked him up again, cradling him against my chest. I started rocking him without realizing it. An ancestral instinct I thought I'd forgotten. Hold on, little one, I whispered to him. Please, hold on. They're coming. They're coming to help you. The minutes that followed until the ambulance arrived were the longest of my life. I sat on the kitchen floor with the baby against my chest. I sang. I don't know what I sang. Maybe the same song I used to sing to Daniel when he was little. Maybe just meaningless sounds. I just needed him to know he wasn't alone, that someone was holding him, that someone wanted him to live. The sirens broke the silence. Red and white lights flashed through the windows. I ran to the door. 2 paramedics got out of the ambulance. An older man with a grey beard and a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She took the baby from my arms with an efficiency that broke my heart. She examined him quickly, pulled out a stethoscope and listened. Her face showed no emotion, but I saw her shoulders tense. Severe hypothermia, possible water aspiration, she said to her partner. We need to move now. They placed him on a small gurney, put an oxygen mask on him. Their hands worked fast, connecting wires, monitors, things I didn't understand. The man looked at me. You're coming with us. It wasn't a question. I got into the ambulance, sitting on the small side seat. I couldn't stop looking at the baby, so tiny among all that equipment. The ambulance sped off. The sirens wailed. The world passed by in a blur through the windows. How did you find him? The paramedic asked while continuing to work. In a suitcase, in the lake. I saw someone throw it in. She looked at me. Then she looked at her partner. I saw something in her eyes. Concern, perhaps suspicion, perhaps pity. Did you see who it was? I opened my mouth. I closed it. Savannah, my daughter-in-law, Daniel's widow, the woman who cried at his funeral as if her world had ended, the same woman who had just tried to drown a baby. How could I say that? How could I even believe it myself? Yes, I finally said. I saw who it was. We arrived at the County General Hospital in Chicago in less than 15 minutes. The emergency room doors burst open. A dozen people in white and green scrubs surrounded the gurney. They were yelling numbers, medical terms, orders. They wheeled the baby through a set of double doors. I tried to follow them, but a nurse stopped me. Ma'am, you have to stay here. The doctors are working. We need some information. She led me to a waiting room, cream-colored walls, plastic chairs, the smell of disinfectant. I sat down. I was trembling from head to foot. I didn't know if it was from the cold of my wet clothes or the shock. Probably both. The nurse sat across from me. She was older than the paramedic, maybe my age. She had kind wrinkles around her eyes. Her name tag read, Nurse Susan. I'm going to need you to tell me everything that happened, she said softly. And I told her every detail. From the moment I saw Savannah's car until I opened the suitcase. Susan took notes on a tablet. She nodded. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she sighed deeply. The police will want to talk to you, she said. This is attempted murder. Maybe worse. Attempted murder. The words hung in the air like black birds. My daughter-in-law, my son's wife, a murderer. I couldn't process it. I couldn't understand. Susan put her hand on mine. You did the right thing. You saved a life today. But that's not how I felt. It felt like I had uncovered something terrible, something I couldn't push back into the darkness, something that would change everything forever. 2 hours passed before a doctor came to speak to me. He was young, maybe 35 years old. He had deep circles under his eyes and hands that smelled of antibacterial soap. The baby is stable, he said. For now, he is in the neonatal ICU. He suffered severe hypothermia and aspirated water. His lungs are compromised. The next 48 hours are critical. Is he going to live? I asked. My voice sounded broken. I don't know, he said with brutal honesty. We're going to do everything we can. The police arrived half an hour later, 2 officers, a woman in her 40s with her hair pulled back in a tight bun, and a younger man taking notes. The woman introduced herself as Detective Sarah Jones. She had dark eyes that seemed to look right through lies. They asked me the same questions over and over from different angles. I described the car, the exact time, Savannah's movements, the suitcase, everything. Sarah watched me with an intensity that made me feel guilty, despite having done nothing wrong. "And are you sure it was your daughter-in-law?" "Completely sure." "Completely." "Why would she do something like that?" "I don't know." "Where is she now?" "I don't know." "When was the last time you spoke to her before today?" 3 weeks ago, on the anniversary of my son's death. Sarah wrote something down. She exchanged a look with her partner. "We're going to need you to come to the precinct tomorrow to make a formal statement, and you cannot contact Savannah under any circumstances. Do you understand?" I nodded. What was I going to say to her anyway? Why did you try to kill a baby? Why did you throw him in the lake like trash? Why? 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 The officers left. Susan returned with a blanket and a mug of hot tea. "You should go home, get some rest, change your clothes." But I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave that baby alone in the hospital. That baby I had held against my chest, who had breathed his first breath of hope in my arms. I stayed in the waiting room. Susan brought me dry clothes from the hospital supply closet, nurse's scrub pants, and a t-shirt that was too big for me. I changed in the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like I had aged 10 years in one afternoon. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in that plastic chair, watching the clock. Every hour I got up and asked about the baby. The nurses gave me the same answer: stable, critical, fighting. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Father Thomas, the priest from my church, showed up. Someone must have called him. He sat beside me in silence. He didn't say anything for a long time. He was just there. Sometimes that's all you need, a presence. Proof that you're not completely alone in the hell. "God tests us in many ways," he finally said. "This doesn't seem like a test," I replied. "It seems like a curse." He nodded. He didn't try to convince me otherwise. And I appreciated that more than any sermon. When the sun began to rise, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. I had crossed a line. I had seen something I couldn't unsee. And whatever came next, I would have to face it. Because that baby, that tiny being fighting for every breath in the next room, had become my responsibility. I hadn't chosen this. But I couldn't abandon him either. Not after pulling him from the water, not after feeling his heartbeat against mine. The dawn arrived without me even realizing it. Light streamed through the waiting room windows, painting everything a pale orange. I had spent the whole night in that plastic chair. My back ached, my eyes burned. But I couldn't leave. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the suitcase sinking. I saw that tiny, still body. I saw the purple lips. Susan appeared at 7 o'clock in the morning with coffee and a sandwich wrapped in aluminum foil. "You need to eat something," she said, placing them in my hands. I wasn't hungry, but I ate anyway because she stood there, waiting. The coffee was too hot and burned my tongue. The sandwich tasted like cardboard, but I swallowed. I chewed. I pretended to be a normal person doing normal things on a normal morning. "The baby is still stable," Susan said, sitting beside me. "His body temperature is rising, his lungs are responding to the treatment. It's a good sign." "Can I see him?" She shook her head. "Not yet. Only immediate family. And we don't even know who the family is." Family. The word hit me like a stone. That baby must have a family. A mother, Savannah. But she had tried to kill him. So who was the father? Where was he? Why hadn't anyone reported him missing? The questions piled up in my head with no answers. At 9 o'clock, Sarah returned. She was alone this time. She sat across from me with a folder in her hands. Her expression was stern, inquisitive. She looked at me as if I were the suspect. "Eleanor, I need to ask you some more questions," she said, opening the folder. "I already told you everything I know." "I know, but some inconsistencies have come up." Inconsistencies? The word floated between us like an accusation. I felt my stomach clench. What kind of inconsistencies? Sarah pulled out a photograph. She placed it on the small table between us. It was Savannah's car, but it was in a parking lot, not at the edge of the lake. This photo was taken by a security camera at a grocery store 30 minutes from here yesterday at 5:20 in the afternoon. 5:20 in the afternoon, 10 minutes after I had seen her at the lake. Impossible. I looked at the photo more closely. It was her car, license plate and all. "But it can't be. There has to be a mistake," I said. "I saw her. I was there. I saw her throw the suitcase. I was sure," I said, but my voice sounded less convincing now. Sarah leaned forward. "Eleanor, I need you to be honest with me. What is your relationship with Savannah like? Do you get along?" And there it was. The real question. The one I had been waiting for since the police showed up. Because we didn't get along. We never got along. From the day Daniel introduced her to me, I knew there was something wrong with her. She was too perfect, too calculating, too interested in the money Daniel earned as an engineer. "We are not close," I admitted. "Do you blame her for your son's death?" "What?" My voice was too loud, too defensive. "It's a simple question. Do you blame Savannah for Daniel's death?" The accident. That's what everyone called it. Daniel was driving home after dinner with Savannah. It was raining. The car skidded. It hit a tree. Daniel died instantly. Savannah walked away with minor scratches. It always seemed strange to me. It always seemed convenient. But I never had proof. Just a heartbroken mother looking for someone to blame. "I don't see what that has to do with the baby." "It has everything to do with it," Sarah said, closing the folder. "Because we haven't been able to locate Savannah. She disappeared. Her house is empty. Her phone is off. And you are the only person who claims to have seen her yesterday." Her words fell on me like ice water. She was accusing me, not directly, but the insinuation was there, clear as day. She thought I had made everything up, that I had found the baby some other way, and I was blaming Savannah for revenge. "I didn't lie," I said through clenched teeth. "I saw what I saw." "Then we have to find Savannah and fast, because if she is this baby's mother, he is in grave danger. And if she's not, then we have an even bigger mystery on our hands." Sarah stood up. She handed me a card with her number. "If you remember anything else, any detail, call me." She left, leaving me with more questions than answers. I stood there with the card in my hand, wondering if I was losing my mind. I had seen Savannah, I was sure of it. But now doubt was seeping in like poison. What if I was wrong? What if it was someone else? What if my grief and resentment made me see what I wanted to see? Father Thomas returned at noon. He held a rosary in his hands. "Shall we pray?" he asked. I'm not very religious, I never was. But at that moment, I needed something bigger than myself, something to tell me I wasn't alone in this. I nodded. We prayed softly together. The familiar words calmed me, even though I didn't understand how they worked. When we finished, I felt a little less broken. "The police think I'm lying," I told him. "The truth always comes to light," he replied. even if it takes time. But we didn't have time. That baby was fighting for his life, and somewhere, Savannah was hiding, or running, or planning her next move. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a different doctor came to see me. A woman this time, older, with thick glasses and a serious expression. "We need your authorization to run some tests on the baby," she said. "I'm not family." "We know, but you are the only responsible person right now. Social services is on the way, but in the meantime, we need to act. The baby needs blood tests. We need to know if he has any medical conditions, if he was exposed to drugs, if he has injuries we didn't detect." I signed the papers. I didn't even read them completely. I just wanted them to do whatever was necessary to save him. 2 hours later, the social worker, Marcy, appeared. She was young. Too young for this job, I thought. Maybe 25 years old. Short hair, grey suit, a professional smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said, sitting beside me, "I need to ask you some questions about your situation. I understand you found the baby." The story again. The questions again. But Marcy was different. She didn't look at me with suspicion. She looked at me with pity, which was worse somehow. "Do you live alone?" she asked. "Yes." "Do you have a stable income?" "I have my late husband's pension and some savings." "Criminal record?" "No." "Mental health issues?" "Depression?" "Anxiety?" I hesitated. "After Daniel died, I took antidepressants for 3 months. My doctor said it was normal, that mourning sometimes needs chemical help. I stopped when I started to feel better." "I had depression after my son's death," I admitted. "But it's past now." Marcy wrote something down. I couldn't see what. "The baby is going to need a temporary home when he is discharged from the hospital," she said. "If he is discharged, social services will look for certified adoptive families. In the meantime, he will remain in state custody." State custody? Those words broke something inside me. That baby I had held against my chest, who had breathed his first breath of life in my arms, would be handed over to strangers, to a system, to people who would see him only as another file, just another number. What if I wanted to? The words came out before I could stop them. What if I wanted to take care of him? Marcy looked at me surprised, then skeptical. "Mrs. Eleanor, you are 63 years old. You are not a certified foster parent. You have no legal relationship with the baby, and you are involved in an active criminal investigation." "I didn't do anything wrong. I saved his life." "I know, but the system has protocols. The best interest of the child comes first. And frankly, your age and your recent emotional situation are factors we have to consider." I felt like I had been slapped. Too old, too unstable, too broken. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was crazy to even think about it. But when I closed my eyes, all I saw was that fragile little body, and I knew no one else in the world would love him like I could. That night I went home for the first time in 36 hours. Susan convinced me. She said I needed to shower, sleep in a real bed, that the baby would be fine, that they would call me if anything changed. I drove home as the sun was setting. The lake shimmered to my right. I stopped in the same spot where I had seen Savannah, where I had pulled out the suitcase. I got out of the car. I walked to the edge. The suitcase was gone. The police had taken it as evidence, but I could see exactly where it had been. I could see my own footprints in the dry mud. I stood there as darkness fell, wondering if I would ever know the truth, wondering if Savannah was watching from somewhere, wondering what the heck had really happened. And then my phone rang. It was the hospital. My heart stopped. Mrs. Eleanor, Susan's voice said, you need to come back now. I drove back to the hospital, ignoring all speed limits. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the engine. Susan hadn't given any details over the phone. She just said to come back now. Those 2 words were enough to fill my head with the worst possible scenarios. The baby had died. That had to be it. Why else would they call me with such urgency? He had fought for 2 days, and finally his tiny body had given out. I hadn't been enough. I hadn't been fast enough. I parked haphazardly, taking up 2 spaces. I ran towards the emergency room doors. Susan was waiting for me at the entrance. Her expression was serious, but there was something else, something I couldn't decipher. He's alive, she said immediately, as if she knew exactly what I was thinking. The baby is alive, but you have to come with me. She led me down hallways I didn't know. We went up to the 3rd floor. We passed the neonatal ICU. We kept walking. Finally, we arrived at a small conference room. Inside were Detective Sarah, Marcy the social worker, and a man I didn't know. He was older, maybe 60 years old. He wore a dark suit and glasses. He had the face of a lawyer. Please, sit down, Sarah said, pointing to a chair. I sat down. My legs felt like jelly. Everyone was looking at me with an intensity that made me want to run away. We received the results of the baby's DNA analysis, Sarah said. Her words fell like stones into still water. DNA. I didn't understand why they had done that. What were they looking for? And? I asked when the silence became unbearable. Sarah exchanged a look with the man in the suit. He nodded. He opened a folder and pulled out several printed sheets. He placed them in front of me. The baby is a boy. He was born approximately 3 days ago, according to medical exams. Sarah paused. And Eleanor, he is your grandson. The world stopped. The words made no sense. I heard them, but my brain refused to process them. My grandson. Impossible. Daniel died 8 months ago. He didn't leave any children, no pregnancy, nothing. That's impossible, I whispered. The results are conclusive, the man in the suit said. I am Dr. Robert Soto, a specialist in forensic genetics. We performed the tests twice to be sure. The baby shares approximately 25% of his DNA with you. He is definitely your biological grandson, son of your son, Daniel. Son of Daniel. My Daniel. I felt like someone had hit me in the chest with a hammer. Daniel had a son he never knew, a son someone had tried to drown in a lake. But how? My voice sounded distant. Daniel died 8 months ago. Savannah never said anything about a pregnancy. Exactly, Sarah said, leaning forward. Savannah was pregnant at the time of the accident. According to our calculations, she became pregnant approximately 1 month before Daniel's death, which means she knew. The room was spinning. Savannah knew she was pregnant when Daniel died. Why didn't she say anything? Why did she hide the pregnancy for 9 months? Why did she give birth in secret and then try to kill her own son? I don't understand, I said. Tears began to blur my vision. Why would she do something like that? He's her son, Daniel's son. That's what we have to find out, Sarah said. But there's more, Eleanor. I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I braced myself. I didn't know for what, but I knew what was coming would be worse. We've been investigating your son's accident, and there are inconsistencies, big inconsistencies. What kind of inconsistencies? Daniel's car was examined after the accident. The official report said it was a skid due to the rain, but we asked for it to be reviewed again. They found evidence of tampering with the brakes. Someone sabotaged it. The word dropped like a bomb. Sabotage. Murder. My son hadn't died in an accident. He had been murdered. Savannah, I said. It wasn't a question. She is our main suspect, Sarah admitted. But we need proof, and we need to find her. She has completely disappeared. She hasn't used her phone. She hasn't touched her bank accounts. It's as if she vanished into thin air. I got up from the chair. I needed to move. I needed air. I walked to the window. Outside, the city shimmered with millions of lights. Normal life, normal people, while I was trapped in this nightmare. My son, I whispered against the glass. My baby. She killed him. No one answered. There was nothing to say. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Marcy. There's one more thing you need to know, she said softly. About the baby. About his future. I turned around. Her eyes were kind, but sad. Given that the baby is your biological grandson, you have legal rights. You can apply for custody. But she raised a hand before I could speak. It will be a long process. There will be evaluations, home visits, psychological interviews, and in the meantime, the baby will remain in the care of the state. No, the word came out like a roar. You are not going to take him away from me. He's all I have left of Daniel. He's my grandson, my blood. I understand, Marcy said. Believe me, I understand. But the system has protocols, and after everything that happened, we have to make sure the baby is safe. He'll be safer with me than with any stranger. Perhaps, but that decision is not up to me. It is up to a judge and the welfare of the child. Dr. Soto spoke for the first time since his initial revelation. There is another factor we must consider. The baby suffered severe trauma, hypothermia, near drowning. The next few weeks will be critical for his development. He will need specialized care, therapy, constant medical follow-up. I'll do whatever it takes, I said. Anything. Sarah stood up. Eleanor, I need you to understand one thing. You are not a suspect. We believe your story, but you also can't just keep the baby because he's your grandson. There is a legal process, and in the meantime, our priority is to find Savannah. We need your help. How? Think. Did Savannah ever mention any special place, any property, any friend or relative with whom she might be hiding? I closed my eyes. I thought about all the conversations I'd had with Savannah during the 3 years she was married to Daniel. They were few, superficial. She never talked about her family. She never mentioned her past. It was as if she had sprung from nowhere the day she met Daniel. She has an aunt, I said suddenly. Up north, near the border. Daniel mentioned it once. He said Savannah grew up with her in San Diego. Sarah quickly took notes. Name? I don't know. Daniel never said. It's a start, Sarah said. We're going to investigate. Everyone left except Susan. She stayed with me in that cold, empty conference room. Do you want to see your grandson? She asked. I nodded, unable to speak. She led me through security doors to the neonatal ICU. She made me wash my hands, put on a sterile gown. Then she led me to an incubator in the corner. And there he was, my grandson, Daniel's son. So small, so fragile, connected to tubes and wires, but alive, breathing, fighting. He had Daniel's dark hair, Daniel's nose, Daniel's long fingers. Can I touch him? I whispered. Yes, just be gentle. I reached my hand through the opening in the incubator. I touched his tiny hand. It was so soft, so warm. His tiny fingers closed around my index finger, a reflex, but it felt like a promise. "Hello, little one," I whispered. "I'm your grandmother, and I promise I'm going to protect you. No one will ever hurt you again. I swear it on your father's memory." Susan put her hand on my shoulder. "He needs a name," she said softly, "for the hospital records, until we find the mother, or until a judge decides on a name." Daniel had wanted to name his first son Matthew, after my father. He told me once during a Christmas dinner, "If I ever have a son, I'll name him Matthew." "Matthew," I said. "His name is Matthew." I stayed there all night, sitting next to the incubator, holding his hand, singing him the songs I used to sing to Daniel, promising him a future I didn't know if I could give him, but promising it anyway. Because now I knew the truth. This baby wasn't a stranger I had found by chance. He was my blood, my family, all that was left of my murdered son. And I wasn't going to let anyone take him away from me. Not the system, not Savannah, no one. The following days were a bureaucratic hell. I woke up every morning at 5 o'clock. I showered. I got dressed. I drove to the hospital. I spent the day next to Matthew's incubator. And in the afternoon, the visits came. Lawyers, social workers, police officers, all with folders, all with questions, all deciding if I was good enough to raise my own grandson. Marcy appeared on the third day with a list of requirements. She read it in a monotone voice, as if she were reciting an appliance instruction manual. "You will need a criminal background check, a full psychological evaluation, a medical exam, income verification, inspection of your house, personal references from at least 3 people who are not family, and you have to complete a 40-hour childcare course." 40 hours. As if I hadn't raised a son to adulthood. As if I didn't know how to change a diaper or prepare a bottle. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and took the papers she handed me. "How long will all this take?" I asked. "If you're lucky, 6 weeks. If not, 3 months." 3 months. Matthew would be in foster care for 3 months, while I jumped through bureaucratic hoops to prove I deserved to raise him. And what about him in the meantime? When he is discharged from the hospital, he will go to a certified temporary foster family. He will receive adequate care. You will be able to visit him twice a week under supervision. Twice a week under supervision. As if I were a threat. As if I wasn't the person who saved him from drowning. That night, I called Father Thomas. I needed references. I needed people to say I wasn't crazy, that I was capable, that I could do this. He came to my house the next day. He sat in my kitchen drinking the same tea I used to make for Daniel when he was a child. "Of course I'll help you, Fa," he said. "You are one of the strongest women I know. This child is lucky to have you." But I didn't feel strong. I felt old, tired, scared. I was 63 years old. How was I going to chase a 2-year-old when I was 65? How was I going to help him with homework when I was 70? How would I be present at his graduation if I made it to 80? "I'm too old for this," I said aloud for the first time. Father Thomas looked at me over his mug. "Sarah was 90 years old when she gave birth to Isaac. Age is just a number when there is love involved." I wanted to believe him. I really did. On the 4th day, Susan taught me how to take care of Matthew, how to hold his tiny head, how to change his tiny diapers, how to prepare the formula to the exact temperature. My hands were shaking at first. I had forgotten how fragile newborns are, how dependent, how terribly delicate. "You're doing great," Susan would say every time I panicked. But it didn't feel great. It felt like walking on thin ice. One false move, and everything would crash down. On the 5th day, Sarah returned with news. "We found Savannah's aunt," she said. "She lives in a small town, 60 miles from the border, near San Diego. We went to question her, and she says she hasn't seen Savannah in 2 years. She says they had a fight, that Savannah owed her money, $3,000, and never paid." Money. It always came back to money with Savannah. Daniel earned a good salary as an engineer, $7,000 a month. He had savings, a life insurance policy for $200,000. Savannah was the beneficiary. "Did she receive the insurance?" I asked. Sarah nodded. 4 months ago, $200,000 deposited into her account. 2 weeks later, she transferred everything to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. We are trying to track it, but it's complicated. $200,000, the value of my son's life. And she had hidden it in some tax haven while planning to kill her baby. "Why?" I said, the question that tormented me every night. "Why kill the baby? She could have given him up for adoption. She could have left him at a hospital. Why try to drown him?" Sarah was silent for a long moment. "There's a theory," she finally said. "We were investigating Daniel's finances. We found something interesting. 2 weeks before he died, he changed his will. He left everything to his future children, not to Savannah, to his children." The air went out of my lungs. Daniel knew. Somehow he knew Savannah was pregnant and changed his will to protect his son. "She killed him for money," I whispered. "We believe so. And then she found out that the money would go to the baby if he was born alive, so she decided to eliminate him too." The sheer wickedness of it left me speechless. She had killed my son. She had carried the pregnancy to term. She had given birth alone. And then she had tried to drown her own baby, all for money. "Do you have enough to arrest her?" "When we find her, yes. But she's still missing. She's smart. She knows we're looking for her." Days turned into weeks. Matthew grew stronger. The doctors removed the tubes one by one. He started breathing on his own, feeding on his own, crying with strong, healthy lungs. He was a medical miracle, according to the doctors. No baby who had gone through what he had should be progressing so well. But I knew it was more than medicine. It was sheer willpower. It was Daniel's spirit living in that little body, fighting, surviving, refusing to give up. I completed all the requirements. The background check came back clean. The medical exam showed I was healthy for my age. The psychological evaluation was tougher. A young woman with glasses asked me questions for 3 hours. "How did you deal with your son's death? How do you feel about Savannah? Are you trying to replace Daniel with this baby?" That last question irritated me. I am not replacing anyone. I am saving my grandson. It's different. She wrote something down. I didn't know if it was good or bad. The house inspection was humiliating. 2 women checked every corner, opened closets, checked the refrigerator, measured the windows to see if they were secure, counted the smoke detectors, asked about my emergency fire plan. "You will need a certified crib, a changing table, safety gates on all stairs, cabinet locks, outlet covers." I spent $1,200 on baby gear. My pension barely covered my basic expenses. I had to use my savings. But I didn't care. Matthew was worth it. The childcare course was the worst. 15 young mothers and me. They all looked at me as if I were the confused grandma who had walked into the wrong class. The instructor was 25 years old. She explained things I already knew with insulting slowness. Babies need to eat every 3 hours. Babies cry when they are hungry or wet. Never shake a baby. I nodded and took notes, although I wanted to scream that I had raised a son to adulthood, that I knew exactly what I was doing. but I needed that certificate. So I swallowed my pride and pretended to learn. 6 weeks after finding Matthew in the lake, Marcy appeared at the hospital with a small smile. "You've completed all the requirements," she said. "The judge will review your case next week. If all goes well, you can have temporary custody in 2 weeks." 2 weeks. After 42 days of bureaucratic hell, I could finally take my grandson home. But that same night, when everything seemed to be getting better, my phone rang. It was Sarah. Her voice was tense. "Eleanor, I need you to come to the precinct now. We found something about Daniel that you need to see." I arrived at the precinct with a knot in my stomach. Sarah was waiting for me at the entrance. Her face was more serious than usual. She led me down narrow hallways to an interrogation room. On the table was a cardboard box. Inside, I recognized Daniel's belongings: his wallet, his watch, his broken phone, the things they gave me back after the accident. "What is this?" I asked. "We were finally able to unlock his phone," Sarah said. "Our technician worked on it for weeks, and we found something." She pulled out a manila envelope. She opened it and scattered several printed sheets on the table. They were screenshots of text messages between Daniel and Savannah, dated 2 weeks before his death. I read the first one. It was from Daniel to Savannah. "We need to talk. About the baby." Savannah's reply: "I don't know what you're talking about." Daniel again: "I found the pregnancy test in the bathroom. Why didn't you tell me?" A silence of 3 hours. Then Savannah: "I wasn't ready to tell you. I was scared." "Scared of what?" "I'm your husband. We're going to be parents. This is wonderful." Another silence. Then: "I don't want to have it." I felt like I had been punched. I kept reading. My hands were shaking. "Daniel, what do you mean you don't want to have it?" Savannah: "I'm not ready. I don't want to be a mother. I want to travel, live, not be tied down to a baby. It's our son. It's a mistake." "Don't say that. Please, we can make it work. I'll help you. My mother will help us. I don't want help. I want my life back." The messages became more intense, Daniel pleading, Savannah resisting, until I got to the last exchange, the day before the accident. Savannah: "I talked to a lawyer. If you decide not to have the baby, I'm divorcing you. And if you have it and don't want to raise him, I'll fight for full custody. I won't let you hurt my son." Daniel: "You're going to regret this." Savannah: "Is that a threat?" There was no answer. The next day, Daniel was dead. I dropped the papers. Tears ran down my face uncontrollably. "She killed him," I said. "She killed him because he was going to protect the baby." "It's what we believe," Sarah said. "And there's more." We checked Savannah's phone records from that week. She made 3 calls to an independent mechanic, Charles Miller. We brought him in for questioning. And what did he say? Nothing at first. But when we showed him evidence of the bank transfers Savannah made to him, $2,000 the day before the accident, he started talking. He admitted that she paid him to sabotage the brakes on Daniel's car. I felt sick. I had to sit down. Savannah had planned everything. She had hired someone to kill my son and made it look like an accident. Why would Charles do something like that? Debts. He gambled. He owed $15,000 to dangerous people. Savannah offered him $2,000 right away and $3,000 later. He accepted. He is now arrested as an accessory to murder. And Savannah? We have a warrant out for her arrest for first-degree murder and attempted murder, but we still haven't found her. She's like a ghost. I sat in that cold room, processing everything. My son had died trying to protect his baby, And that baby was now in the hospital, fighting for his life, because his own mother had tried to kill him too. The cruelty of it all was unbearable. "What happens now?" I asked. "We keep looking. We have her picture at all airports, at all borders, alerts at hospitals in case she tries to change her appearance. Someone will recognize her eventually. No one disappears forever." But I wasn't so sure. Savannah had proven to be smarter and colder than I ever imagined. If she had planned Daniel's murder in such detail, she probably had an equally elaborate escape plan. I went back to the hospital that night. I sat next to Matthew's incubator. I watched him sleep, so innocent, so unaware of the horror surrounding him. His very existence had cost his father's life. His mother had tried to kill him. And I was all that stood between him and a system that would see him only as another file. "Your dad loved you," I whispered to him. "He died protecting you, and I'm going to finish what he started. I promise you." Susan appeared with coffee. She sat next to me in silence for a while. "I heard about the messages," she finally said. "I'm so sorry." "I didn't know Daniel could be so strong," I said. "He was always gentle, kind, but in those messages, he was a warrior, willing to fight for his son. Love does that. It makes you stronger than you ever thought possible." She was right. I was feeling it myself. I never considered myself particularly strong, but now I was fighting the system, fighting against time, fighting against a fugitive murderer, all for this baby. The following days were about preparation. I turned Daniel's room into a room for Matthew. I removed the rock band posters, the football trophies, the college photos. I painted the walls a soft yellow. I assembled the new crib, the changing table, the musical mobile that played lullabies. It was painful to dismantle my son's sanctuary, but it was necessary. Daniel was gone. Matthew was alive and needed a space to grow. Father Thomas came to bless the room. He sprinkled holy water in the corners. He prayed for Matthew's protection, for my strength, for justice for Daniel. "God has a plan," he said, "even if we don't always understand it." "What kind of plan involves killing a good man and almost drowning a baby?" I asked bitterly. "The kind of plan that turns evil into redemption. Savannah wanted to destroy this family, but look, Daniel left a legacy. You found a new purpose. This baby survived against all odds. Evil didn't win. Love won." I wanted to believe him. Some days I could. Other days all I saw was darkness. The court hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday. I wore my best suit, the same one I wore to Daniel's funeral. Marcy accompanied me. We entered a small courtroom. The judge was a woman in her 50s, grey hair pulled back, a severe expression, but not unkind. She reviewed all my documents, the certificates, the references, the evaluations, the house inspection report. She read every page with meticulous attention. Finally, she looked up. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said, "I have reviewed your case carefully. It is highly unusual. A 63-year-old woman requesting custody of a newborn. But it is also unusual for a grandmother to save her grandson from drowning." My heart was beating so fast, I was sure everyone could hear it. "I have spoken with the hospital, with the social workers, with your references, and everyone says the same thing, that you are dedicated, loving, capable, that this baby was lucky you were there that day." I felt tears welling up, but I held them back. "I have also read about the criminal case regarding the suspicion that the baby's mother murdered the father and then tried to kill the baby. It is horrific, unthinkable. This child needs stability. He needs love. He needs someone to protect him." A pause. Long, interminable. Therefore, I am granting temporary custody to Eleanor for a period of 6 months. During that time, there will be monthly social services visits, progress evaluations, and at the end of the 6 months, we will review whether the custody becomes permanent. Congratulations, Grandma. The gavel banged, and suddenly I could breathe again. I cried right there in the courtroom. I cried from relief, from gratitude, from fear, from everything. Marcy hugged me. "You did it," she whispered. "You get to take him home." 3 days later, 6 weeks after pulling him from the lake, I took Matthew home. Susan helped me buckle him into the car seat. She explained everything again: how to hold him, how to feed him, how to notice signs of trouble. "He'll be fine," she said, "and I'm just a call away if you need me." I drove home at 20 miles per hour. Every bump terrified me. Every car that passed my house slowly made me nervous, but we arrived safe and sound. I walked into the house with Matthew in my arms. I took him to his room. I put him in the crib. He looked so small in that space, so vulnerable, but he was breathing. He was alive. He was safe. For now. The first few weeks with Matthew home were the hardest of my life. I had forgotten how exhausting it is to care for a newborn. The sleepless nights, the inexplicable crying, the constant panic that I was doing something wrong. In my 30s, I had raised Daniel with youthful energy. At 63, every sleepless night left me shattered. But there were also moments of pure magic. When Matthew held my finger with his little hand. When he stopped crying at the sound of my voice. When he opened those small, dark eyes, identical to Daniel's, and looked at me as if I were his whole world. In those moments, I knew every second of exhaustion was worth it. Susan came 3 times a week. She taught me tricks I had forgotten. How to burp him more easily. How to swaddle him tightly so he would sleep better. How to interpret his different cries. She became more than a nurse. She became a friend, a savior. "You're doing an amazing job," she would always tell me. But I didn't feel amazing. I felt terrified. Every strange noise in the night made me jump. Every car that passed my house slowly made me nervous. Savannah was still out there somewhere, and although the police said she had probably fled the country, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was close, watching, waiting. I installed new locks on all the doors, security cameras on the porch, an alarm connected directly to the police. I spent another $800 I didn't have. But Matthew's safety was priceless. One night, 3 weeks after bringing him home, I found something. I was organizing Daniel's things that I had stored in boxes, his clothes, his books, his papers. At the bottom of a box, I found a diary, brown leather, worn. I didn't know Daniel kept a diary. I opened it with trembling hands. The first pages were from years ago. Thoughts about his work, about his friends, nothing important. But then I got to the entries from the last year, the year he met Savannah. "I met someone today," an entry from 4 years ago read. "Her name is Savannah. She's beautiful, smart, mysterious. There's something about her I can't quite figure out. She intrigues me." I kept reading. The entries about Savannah became more and more frequent. Daniel was in love, completely captivated. But there were also doubts. "Sometimes I feel like I don't really know her. She never talks about her family. When I ask, she changes the subject. It's as if her life started the day we met." Another entry. I caught Savannah looking through my bank statements. She said she was just curious, but something felt wrong. Why would she look at that without asking first? And then the one that chilled my blood. Dated 1 month before his death. "Savannah is pregnant. I found the test." But when I confronted her, she was furious. She said she doesn't want to have it, that it will ruin her life. How can she say that? It's our son. I changed my will today. Everything will go to the baby. I don't trust Savannah with the money, not after seeing how she spends. The $500 shoes, the $1,000 handbags. She always wants more. But a baby is not an accessory. It's a life. And I'm going to protect it at all costs. Tears fell onto the pages, staining the ink. Daniel knew. He knew something was wrong with Savannah. He knew money was the only thing she cared about. And he had taken steps to protect his son, steps that cost him his life. The last entry was from the day he died. Savannah threatened me today. She said I would regret pressuring her about the baby. I don't know what that means, but it scares me. I'm going to talk to my mother tomorrow. Tell her everything. Maybe she can help me figure out what to do. I just know I can't let Savannah hurt our son. I will protect him always. He never got the chance to talk to me. He died that night. And I never knew he needed help, that he was scared, that he had seen the danger approaching, but not quickly enough. I'm sorry, I whispered to the diary. I'm so sorry, my love. I should have noticed. I should have seen something was wrong. But I couldn't change the past. I could only protect the future. I took the diary to Sarah the next day. She read everything. Her jaw tightened with every page. This is crucial evidence, she said. It shows premeditation. It shows motive. When we find Savannah, this will bury her. When are you going to find her? I asked. It's been almost 2 months now. We're doing everything we can. But she's smart. She probably used fake documents to leave the country. She could be anywhere. But 3 days later, everything changed. I was feeding Matthew when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something made me do it. Hello? I said. Silence. Breathing. Then a voice I recognized immediately. Eleanor. Savannah. My blood ran cold. I almost dropped Matthew. I looked around the room as if she might be hiding in the shadows. Where are you? I managed to say. It doesn't matter where I am. What matters is that I have something you want, and you have something I want. You don't have anything I want. I have the truth about what really happened with Daniel, about why I did what I did. I bet you want to know. I already know the truth. I read Daniel's diary. I know you killed him for money. I know you're a monster. A cold, humorless laugh. A monster. How dramatic. You don't know anything, Eleanor. Daniel wasn't the saint you think he was. Don't you dare, I roared. Don't you dare speak ill of my son. Fine. You're going to call the police. Go ahead. By the time they trace this call, I'll be gone. I use burner phones. I'm not stupid. My mind was racing. I had to keep her talking. I had to record this somehow. I put the phone on speaker. I grabbed my cell phone with my free hand. I started recording. What do you want, Savannah? I want my son. Your son. You tried to drown him. It was a mistake. A moment of madness. I was scared. I was confused. I had just given birth alone. I didn't know what I was doing. But I'm better now. I want my baby back. Never. Over my dead body. That can be arranged, she said with chilling calm. Listen carefully. I want Matthew, and I want Daniel's will money, the $200,000 from the insurance, plus everything Daniel left in a trust fund for the baby. That's another $300,000, $500,000. Everything Daniel had worked for, everything he had saved, all meant for his son. And if I refuse? Then I'll come for him. I'm his biological mother. Legally, I have more rights than you. And when they finally catch me, I'll say you stole my baby, that you threatened me, that you made up the whole lake story to keep him. My word against yours. And I'm much younger, more believable, more sympathetic. I felt dizzy, but I kept recording. How do I know you won't kill us both and take everything anyway? You don't, but it's your only option. Bring the baby and the money to the old shed on the lake shore. You know the one? Where you and Daniel used to fish. Tomorrow at midnight. Alone. If I see any police, I disappear, and you'll never see me again. And eventually I'll find a way to take Matthew from you anyway. Savannah, wait. But the line was already dead. I stood there trembling with Matthew in one arm and the phone in the other. I had the recording. I had evidence that Savannah was alive, that she had threatened me. I called Sarah immediately. I sent her the audio. Perfect, she said. It's exactly what we needed. Now we're going to set a trap. You're going to that meeting, but we'll be there, hidden, waiting. And when she shows up, we'll catch her. What if something goes wrong? What if she sees the police and runs again? She won't see us, I promise. I'll have snipers positioned, teams in the shadows. She won't escape this time. And Matthew? Matthew stays with Susan, in a safe place. You're not bringing him. You're just going to pretend you brought him. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. One more day. I just needed to survive one more day. And then Savannah would finally face justice for Daniel, for Matthew, for all the pain she had caused. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake watching Matthew sleep, memorizing every detail of his face, just in case something went wrong, in case I never saw him again. Your dad loved you, I whispered to him. And I love you. And tomorrow, we're going to make sure you're safe forever. The next day passed in slow motion. Every minute felt like an hour, every hour an eternity. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Susan came to pick up Matthew. I packed his bag as if he were going to be gone for a week, although I expected to have him back in a few hours. Diapers, formula, extra clothes, his favorite blanket. My hands were trembling as I placed each item in the bag. He'll be perfectly fine with me, Susan said, taking Matthew in her arms. I have your number. The police have my address. No one is going to touch him. I promise. I kissed her on the forehead. Then I kissed Matthew. His soft skin smelled like baby lotion and hope. I love you, little one, I whispered. Grandma will be back soon. I watched them leave. Susan's car disappeared down the street, and I felt like a piece of my soul was being torn out. But it was necessary. Matthew had to be far away, safe, just in case things went wrong. Sarah arrived at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with 3 other police officers, 2 men and a woman, all in plain clothes, all armed. They turned my living room into a command center with laptops, radios, maps of the area around the shed. We're going to go over the plan again, Sarah said, spreading a map on my dining room table. The shed is here, abandoned 5 years ago. It has 3 entrances, main, side and back. We will have teams covering all 3. She pointed to locations on the map with a red marker. Snipers here and here, on the roofs of the adjacent buildings. They will have a clear view of the inside through the broken windows. Assault teams back here, ready to enter the moment we have visual confirmation of Savannah. And what exactly am I supposed to do? I asked. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. You go in, talk to her, keep her talking. We need her to confess, to admit she killed Daniel, that she tried to kill Matthew. You will be wearing a hidden microphone. We'll record everything. One of the officers, a tall man in his 30s, pulled out a small, button-sized device. This goes on your clothes right here, he pointed just below my neck. It transmits everything in real time. It also has a panic button. If you press it 3 times in a row, we enter immediately, no matter what. He showed me how it worked. I practiced pressing it. 3 quick taps. My life would depend on remembering that. What if she asks to see the baby? You tell her he's in the car, that you want to talk first, that you want to understand why she did what she did, appeal to her ego. People like Savannah love to talk about themselves. Let her brag about how smart she was. We spent the next few hours going over every detail, every possible scenario. What to do if Savannah was armed? What to do if she wasn't alone? What to do if something went wrong? My head was swimming with information. At 8 o'clock in the evening, they made me eat a ham sandwich that tasted like cardboard. But I swallowed every bite. I needed energy. I needed to be alert. At 10 o'clock at night, they put the microphone on me. They tested the audio repeatedly. They made me say phrases, count to 10, yell, whisper, making sure everything worked perfectly. "Remember," Sarah said, looking me in the eyes, "you are not alone in there. I will be listening to every word. The team will be only a few yards away. At the slightest sign of real danger, we go in. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." I nodded. I wanted to believe her, but fear was a cold snake coiled in my stomach. At 11:15 at night, we set off. I drove my own car. Sarah was in the passenger seat, crouched down so as not to be seen from outside. The other teams were already positioned, she informed me by radio. Snipers in position, rear team ready, perimeter secured. We arrived at the shed at 11:40 at night. It was exactly as I remembered it. Old, dilapidated, broken windows, walls covered in graffiti. Daniel and I used to come here when he was a boy. We would fish off the dock behind it. Simpler times, happier times. Sarah got out of the car in a blind spot from Savannah's imaginary cameras. She disappeared into the shadows. I was alone. I looked at the clock. 11:55 at night. 5 minutes. I closed my eyes. I thought about Daniel, about his smile, about how he called me Mom in that loving tone, about how it would have been to see him as a father. I thought about Matthew, about his future, about all the things he deserved to have. A life without fear, without threats, without shadows. Midnight. My phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "Go in alone now." I got out of the car. The night air was cold. I could see my breath. I walked toward the shed's main door. Every step sounded too loud in the silence. The door was ajar. I pushed it. It creaked. The sound echoed in the empty walls. Inside it was dark, almost completely black. Only a little moonlight filtered through the broken windows, creating strange shadows. "Savannah," I called. My voice sounded small, scared. "Close the door," a voice said from the shadows. Savannah's voice. I closed the door. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness. And then I saw her, standing in the center of the shed. She was wearing dark clothes, black jeans, a hoodie. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was short, dyed blonde, but it was her. "You came," she said. She seemed almost surprised. "You said you wanted to talk." "I said I wanted my son and the money. Where are they?" "I want answers first. I want to know why. Why did you kill Daniel? Why did you try to kill Matthew?" She laughed. That same cold sound I had heard on the phone. "Why do you think, Eleanor? For the money?" "Daniel loved you. He gave you everything." Daniel was a romantic fool. He talked about love and family and the future. I wanted freedom. I wanted to travel, live, not be tied down to a house and a crying baby. Then why did you marry him? Because he was an engineer. He earned well. He had savings. He had life insurance. It was an investment. I was going to wait 5 years, divorce him, keep half of everything. But then I got pregnant, and that ruined my plan. Her words were venom. Everyone burned me. You told him you didn't want the baby. Of course I didn't want it. But Daniel became impossible. He changed his will, everything for the baby. So I had to adapt. If Daniel died while I was pregnant, I would receive the insurance, but the baby would inherit the rest. So the solution was simple. Kill Daniel. Have the baby. Kill him too. Keep everything. She was confessing. Everything. Every word recorded. Transmitted. The police were listening. But I needed more. You hired Charles to sabotage the brakes. $2,000. A bargain, considering I gained $200,000 from the insurance, the best investment of my life. And the baby, your own son. He was an obstacle, nothing more. I gave birth alone in a cabin I rented with cash. No one knew I was pregnant. I wore loose clothes. I avoided people. When he was born, I thought about just abandoning him somewhere. But then I remembered the lake where you and Daniel used to go. It seemed poetic to end everything where your little family tradition began. I felt sick. I felt rage. I felt all the hatred in the world concentrated on the woman standing in front of me. But you failed. I saved him. Yes, that was annoying, but it doesn't matter because now I'm going to finish the job. Where is Matthew, Eleanor? I'm not giving him to you. It wasn't a question. And then I saw the gun. She pulled it out of her hoodie, small, black, pointed directly at my chest. Last chance. Where is my son? I pressed the panic button. 1, 2, 3 times. You are never going to touch him, I said. Her finger moved to the trigger. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. I saw the flash. I heard the shot. I felt something hit my shoulder, hot, burning. I fell backward, and then the shed exploded into movement. The doors burst open, blinding lights, voices shouting. Police! Drop the weapon! Get on the ground! Now! I saw Savannah turn around. I saw the guns pointing at her. I saw she was surrounded. And for a second I thought she was going to shoot again. I thought she was going to make them kill her. But she lowered the gun slowly. She let it drop to the floor. She raised her hands. 3 police officers tackled her. They pinned her face down. They handcuffed her. She was screaming. Insults, threats. But it didn't matter. She was arrested. It was over. Sarah ran to me. She knelt by my side. Eleanor, stay with me. I'm fine, I managed to say, although the pain in my shoulder was unbearable. They caught her. Tell me they caught her. We caught her. It's over now. Stay still. The ambulance is on its way. I closed my eyes. It was enough. It was finally over. I woke up in the hospital again. But this time it was different. This time I didn't feel despair, but relief. Peace. My shoulder ached where the bullet had passed through the muscle, but it had missed the bone. Lucky, the doctor said. 2 centimeters to the left, and it would have been your heart. Susan was sitting next to me, holding Matthew. When I opened my eyes, she smiled. Look who woke up, she said, coming closer. Someone missed you a lot. I took Matthew with my good arm. I cradled him against my chest. He smelled like talcum powder and hope. He started making small noises, those little sounds babies make when they are happy. Hello, my love, I whispered. Grandma's okay. Everything is okay now. Sarah appeared an hour later. She brought flowers and a tired smile. how do you feel? Like someone who's been shot, I said. But alive. What happened to Savannah? Arrested, charged with first-degree murder for Daniel, attempted murder for Matthew, attempted murder for you, plus a list of other crimes. Conspiracy, fraud, obstruction of justice. She's going to spend the rest of her life in prison, with no chance of parole. The words were sweet as honey. Justice, finally. The recording worked perfectly. She confessed everything. Her lawyer tried to plead coercion, that you forced her to say those things. But the jury saw the whole video. They saw her pull out the gun, shoot. They had no mercy. 30 minutes of deliberation, guilty on all counts. In the following months, I recovered slowly. Physical therapy for my shoulder was painful, but necessary. Susan kept coming to help with Matthew when I couldn't lift him with my injured arm. Father Thomas brought food. Neighbours I barely knew showed up with plates of food and kind words. "You're a hero," the lady from the house downstairs would say. "What you did for that baby, to risk your life like that." But I didn't feel like a hero. I just felt like a grandmother doing what any grandmother would do, protecting her own. 2 months after Savannah's capture, I had another hearing with the judge. This time it was different. This time the judge was smiling as she reviewed the documents. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said, "I have reviewed all the reports from the last 6 months, the social services visits, Matthew's medical evaluations, the progress reports, and I must say I am impressed." My heart was beating fast. "Matthew is thriving under your care. He is reaching all his developmental milestones. He is healthy, happy, loved, and you have proven to be more than capable, despite the challenges." "Thank you, Your Honour." "Therefore, I am granting full and permanent custody of Matthew to Eleanor, effective immediately. Furthermore, given that the biological mother is incarcerated for life and has lost all her parental rights, I authorize the adoption proceedings if you wish to continue." Adoption. To make him legally mine. Not just his grandmother with custody, but his legal mother. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Yes, I want to adopt him." "Then so be it. Congratulations officially." The gavel fell, and suddenly all the weight I had been carrying for months lifted. It was official. Matthew was mine. No one could ever take him away from me. Never. I left the courthouse with Matthew in my arms. He was 8 months old now, chubby and happy. He was smiling, showing 2 small teeth. He laughed when I rocked him. He pulled my hair with his plump little hands. Susan and Father Thomas were waiting for me outside. They hugged me. The 3 of us cried with happiness right there on the courthouse steps. "You did it," Susan said. "Against all odds, you did it." That night I made a special dinner. Well, as special as it could be with a baby who needed constant attention. I invited Susan and Father Thomas. We ate roast chicken and rice. We toasted with apple juice because none of us drank alcohol. "To Matthew," Father Thomas said, raising his glass. "To his bright future." "To Daniel," I said, "who is watching us from somewhere, proud of his son." "To love," Susan added, "which always conquers evil." We drank, ate, and laughed. Matthew banged on his high chair and shouted with joy, not understanding, but feeling the happiness around him. Months turned into years. Matthew grew. He started walking. At 11 months, his first word was grandma. I cried when he said it. At 2, he was running all over the house. At 3, he started preschool. Every milestone was a miracle. Every day, a gift. I talked to him about Daniel constantly. I showed him pictures. I told him stories. "Your dad was a good man," I would tell him. "Brave. He loved you even before he met you. He gave his life to protect you. Daddy hero, Matthew would say in his little voice. Yes, my love, Daddy was a hero, and you will grow up to be as good, as brave, as loving as he was. I never told him about Savannah. That would come later, when he was older, when he could understand. For now, he just needed to know that he was loved, that he was wanted, that there were people who had fought for him. On Matthew's 5th birthday, we had a party in the backyard. We invited all the neighborhood kids. There were balloons, cake, presents. Matthew ran among his friends, laughing, so full of life, so different from the purple, still baby I had pulled out of the lake 5 years ago. Susan sat next to me on the porch, watching the celebration. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About that day," I admitted. "About how I could have arrived 5 minutes later. About how I might not have looked out the window at that exact moment. About how everything could have been different. But it wasn't. You found him. You saved him. It was your destiny." "Or Daniel's," I said. "Sometimes I think he guided my eyes toward the lake that day. That somehow he knew I would be there. That he could trust me to protect his son." "Maybe," Susan said. "Or maybe you're just an incredibly brave woman who refused to give up." That night, after everyone had left, after Matthew fell asleep, exhausted from so much excitement, I sat alone in the living room. I looked at the photos on the wall. Daniel as a baby, Daniel at his graduation, Daniel on his wedding day. And next to those photos, new ones. Matthew newborn in the hospital, Matthew taking his first steps, Matthew on his first day of school. 2 generations connected by love, separated by tragedy, united by survival. "We did it, Daniel," I whispered to his photo. "Your son is safe. He's happy. He's growing up strong and good, just as you wanted." And although I knew he couldn't answer, I felt something, a warmth, a peace, as if he was there, proud, grateful, at peace. Maybe you would have given up if you had been in my place. Maybe you would have thought you were too old, too tired, too broken. Or maybe you would have done exactly the same thing, because that's what love does. It makes you stronger than you ever imagined possible. It makes you fight when everything seems lost. It makes you find hope in the deepest darkness. I don't know what the future holds. I know there will be challenges. I know there will be difficult days. I know raising a child at my age won't be easy, but I also know that every day with Matthew is a gift. Every smile, every hug, every "I love you, Grandma." When I look at him sleeping peacefully in his room, the room that was once his father's, I see not only the child, but the promise. The promise I made to my son. The promise I made to myself that terrible day at the edge of the lake. The promise to protect, to love, to never give up. Some say it was luck that I was looking out the window at that exact moment. Others say it was fate. Maybe it was a little of both. Maybe it was Daniel, guiding me from somewhere beyond our understanding. What I know for sure is that when I saw that suitcase sinking into the lake, when I heard that faint sound coming from inside, when I felt Matthew's tiny heart fighting to keep beating against my chest, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. And you know what? I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the child sleeping under my roof. I'm grateful for the chance to see Daniel's eyes again, to hear his laughter echoing in the walls of this old house. I'm grateful for the chance to love again, to have a purpose, to feel that despite everything I lost, I also gained something precious. Tragedy finds us all, sooner or later. It knocks on our door when we least expect it. It snatches away the people we love, the dreams we cherished, the security we took for granted. But what do we do next? That's the question that defines who we are. I could have surrendered to grief when Daniel died. I could have shrunk away in fear when I saw Savannah throw the suitcase into the lake. I could have said I was too old, too weak, too broken to be a mother again. Instead, I chose to fight. I chose to love. I chose to believe that, even in the ashes of the deepest loss, something new can grow. And it grew. His name is Matthew. He is 5 years old today. Tomorrow he will be 6. And someday he will be 20, 30, 40. A full man with his own dreams, his own loves, maybe his own children. I don't know if I'll be here to see it all. I probably won't. But I know I planted the seeds. I know I gave him strong roots and wings to fly. I know I told him about his father, about the love Daniel had for him even before he was born, about the bravery it took to defend him. And that will have to be enough. Some nights, like this one, after the house falls silent and only the ticking of the old clock on the wall remains, I think about the woman I was before that day at the edge of the lake. The woman broken by grief, living in the ghosts of the past, letting the days pass without purpose or hope. I barely recognize her now, because the woman I am today, the woman who chases a 5-year-old around the yard, who sticks stick figure drawings on the refrigerator, who kisses scraped knees and scares away monsters under the bed, that woman is stronger than I ever imagined being. And it all started with a choice. The choice to run toward the lake instead of running away from it. The choice to open that wet suitcase even when my heart screamed with fear about what I might find. The choice to fight for the future when the past felt too heavy to carry. It wasn't an easy choice. It wasn't an easy journey. There were days when my back hurt so much from carrying a baby that I could barely stand. There were nights when the incessant crying left me on the verge of tears. There were moments when I wondered if I had made a mistake, if I was being selfish to think I could be a mother again at my age. But then Matthew would smile at me. He would say, "Grandma," in that sweet voice. He would fall asleep in my arms, trusting me to keep him safe. And I knew, deep in my soul, that I hadn't made a mistake. I had done exactly what I was supposed to do. Sarah and Susan are still part of our lives. Sarah stops by now and then, bringing gifts for Matthew, checking how we are. Susan has become almost an aunt to him. She takes him to the park on Sundays. She teaches him about birds and trees. She gives him that extra love every child deserves. Father Thomas blesses our house every Christmas. He tells me Matthew is living proof that God works in mysterious ways, transforming tragedy into triumph, pain into purpose. And Savannah is serving her life sentence with no chance of parole. She will never be able to harm Matthew or anyone else again. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about him, if she regrets it, if any spark of maternal love ever existed in that cold heart. But then I remember the look on her face when she threw the suitcase into the lake, and I know the answer. Some people are incapable of love. Savannah was one of them. She only cared about money, freedom, her own desires. She saw Matthew as an obstacle, not the miracle that he is. Her loss, my gain. Because every morning I wake up to the sound of little feet running down the hallway. My bedroom door opens, and Matthew jumps into my bed, his dark hair messy, his eyes, Daniel's eyes, shining with the promise of a new day. "Good morning, Grandma," he shouts, throwing his little arms around me. And in that moment, all the pain, all the struggle, all the sacrifice is worth it. In that moment, I know I would do it all again. I would face Savannah, take a bullet, fight the whole system, just to have this child in my life. When people hear our story, they usually say, "I'm amazing, brave, extraordinary." But I don't feel that way. I just feel like a grandmother who did what any grandmother would do: protect her grandson at any cost. The true hero of this story is Daniel, who saw through Savannah's charm, who changed his will to protect his unborn son, who was willing to face a custody battle to keep him safe. Daniel, who paid the ultimate price for his love. And the true miracle is Matthew, who survived against all odds, who fought for every breath in those critical first hours, who brought the light back to this house that was once dark with grief. As for me, I'm just the bridge between father and son, the keeper of their memories, the protector of their future. And it is enough. It is more than enough. Now, if you liked this story, click to subscribe and tell me in the comments what part left you speechless. Oh, and don't forget to join as a member to get access to exclusive videos I don't upload here. I'll see you there.